This is a First Warning Weather Winter Storm Special Report.
1 minute there's light, the next hundreds of thousands of homes just like these are left in the dark, all thanks to freezing rain and down power lines across our area.
Our winter weather team coverage takes you live to the hardest hit areas as crews work non-stop to remove downed lines, trees, and restore power.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon on this special edition of WPDE News Channel 15. I'm Crystal Costa.
And I'm Jack Lamson. There's still sleet, freezing rain, and snow moving through some parts of our area, and we're already getting reports of some school cancellations ahead of tomorrow. But first, meteorologist Darren Stack is in the First Warning Weather Center with a look outside at conditions right now.
Yeah, we are tracking this right now on First Warning Live, Doppler 15,000. We do, as mentioned, have some snow, sleet, and freezing rain still ongoing across parts of the PD. As you can see, though, along the Grand Strand, conditions are relatively quiet. So let's go ahead and move right into the northern ends of the PD and into the border belt. You see around Bennettsville, some snow, Society Hill, Cheraw, Lumberton, a little bit of a mix, as well as in through Laurinburg and Fairmont. Rockingham also dealing with predominantly snow out there. You go a little further south, Florence. First Warning Live, Doppler 15,000 showing you are dry, maybe a little bit of drizzle or a flurry or two. But as far as anything really coming down at a quick rate, it looks like that's starting to move a little bit off to your north. Again, the Grand Strand currently is dry, although we do have a little bit of drizzle out there, light enough that the radar's not picking it up. This is part of the upper level disturbance with this system. It is trying to wrap around some snow back into the PD. It's moving it into the Midlands. But it does look like most of the moisture will be along the I-95 corridor with this and even points to the west. But certainly something to watch closely. We will see the potential for some light accumulation with this, but as far as anything compared to what we've been dealing with, we will not see anything major from this upper level disturbance from this point forward. No icing for the Grand Strand, few rain showers because of our temperatures on the rise. Now here is First Warning storm chaser Gerard Jabali. He's actually in Beaver Dam Road right now in Florence, and you can see there is a tree crossing this road. And this is a view for a good portion of the area. The road's treacherous to travel, down trees, power lines, and this is part of the reason why we are dealing with those widespread power outages. Now, across the PD, as I mentioned, our temperatures have been below freezing, but notice around Bennettsville, Hartsville, and Bishopville reporting 34. We're finally back above freezing in a few spots. Freezing right now in Cheraw and Dillon. Closer to the Grand Strand, we're still in the mid-30s, but we've stayed above freezing since yesterday when the changeover occurred from the freezing rain into the rain. We will continue to see those mid-30s for the inland areas, but as long as we continue to get above freezing, that is certainly a plus. Now you can see the upper level low spinning over us. This will all pull away. We have another cold front though that's off to the north and to the west, moving through portions of Illinois. That cold front will drop on through tomorrow night. The good news is that looks like it's going to pass us by, well, with mainly warm conditions out there. So if it does bring anything, it will be liquid, nothing frozen. Just a few rain showers Friday night to early Saturday morning. It should not have a major impact on those Valentine's Day plans by any means. So the good news is conditions are finally winding down as far as the moisture is concerned through the afternoon. We'll still have to watch around I-95 and up into the border belt areas. We'll continue to watch the ice accumulation. Still a possibility. Obviously, this is all falling on top of areas that are heavily frozen over from the freezing rain and the snow we've been seeing over the past 2 days along the Grand Strand. Conditions are certainly improving. We do have a much warmer weekend coming our way. And how about this, guys? Here's a little light for you. 60s, potentially 70s for some spots next week. Yeah, we'll talk more about that here coming up in just a little bit.
Pretty amazing. Nice to hear the words winding down, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. After the last couple of days, we know you all agree with us, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, at last check, we were just in tallying the numbers for, the estimates for homes and businesses without power. At last check, just about a half an hour ago, we were at still more than 100,000 homes and businesses still without power in parts of the PD and the Grand Strand.
Power is out pretty much all over the city of Florence. Some have been without electricity for more than 12 hours now. Duke Energy brought in an additional 250 people to help restore power, and they've made a lot of progress, but it's still going to take some time. Duke Energy provides service for 51,000 homes and businesses in Florence County alone. Police and deputies are helping to direct traffic where traffic lights are out. Many drivers say they appreciate what the officers are doing in the midst of this ice storm.
Oh, I think it's a good thing that and I've seen them all over town and trying to make sure they cut down on the amount of accidents that are happening and stuff. It seems like the right thing to do.
Florence County Emergency Management is monitoring the impact of this storm and sending out teams to assess the damage. They have to provide an estimate of damages to their state counterparts to determine if Florence County is eligible for any federal funds.
Horry County is also dealing with thousands of power outages just in that county alone. And joining us now live on the phone is Penelope Hinson with Horry Electric Cooperative. Penelope, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for helping us get the word out to members about our status.
Now, you mentioned getting that word out. What is the word in the scope of things? How bad is this storm out there?
Well, we had, as of this morning, we had 18,000 out, first thing. We have whittled that number down to 14,000. It's going to take some time. The outages are very scattered. We have 10 5-man crews out in the field. They are working from the substations to the individual services. They're trying to get the most people on at one time. There's a method to this madness. They start at the substations, then they work the main feeder lines, which is what they're doing now, and that could turn on between 200 to 2,000 meters at a time. Now, that doesn't mean that your power, if you're in a neighborhood and your power comes on, your neighbors might not come on because something else may be wrong further down the line. So we're asking people to open up and share and be nice to neighbors till we can get everybody back hot.
Penelope, I got to ask you that we've seen so many down power lines blocking streets. What advice do you have for people if they just see a down line?
They need to stay away from it. They need to call us or call 911 to report the power line down. They need to treat it as being live, and that is, they just do not need to touch it.
All right, we're talking now with Penelope Hinson from Horry Electric Cooperative. And now, one thing that people can do, what can people do in order to kind of help is, now we've heard about people maybe leaving lights on to let crews know as they're driving by as it gets a little bit later into the day, a little bit darker out there. Can they kind of leave a porch light on to let people, or to let your crews know that power has been restored in those areas?
Yes, it would be a great help to leave the porch light on to let us know that their power's been restored. They need to call our outage line and let us know if they're experiencing outage. Please only call once because we only have so many lines coming in. And we will, as a courtesy, after we believe we have restored power to your area, we'll call you back to see if the power has indeed been restored. Now, something else the members can do is we're restoring power to the homes that are able to receive power. They'll need to have their weatherhead checked to make sure that it is in working order before we can restore service to their individual home. So they can get in touch with an electrician now if they think that their individual service, their weatherhead, is out of repair.
All right, Penelope Hinson with Horry Electric Cooperative. We so much appreciate your time, ma'am.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we want to talk more about these power outages. We have a number of electric companies listed on your website, carolinalive.com. And not only can you report an outage here on this screen, now the headline of this story is Power Crews Working on Outages. If you head down there, you can see all of these different companies where you can report an outage. But I also want to show you Duke Energy, the current outage map we want to take a look at, because you can also kind of see the scale of how many outages there are right now.
Definitely. There's links to all of the major companies in our area. And if you go ahead and zoom in there, you can actually kind of roll your cursor over the map and it'll highlight the specific county and show you how many outages they're reporting in that area, so you can kind of get an idea. If the electric provider listed on the website, if they have one of these maps, we've got the link there for you to go and check it out.
Absolutely. And because there are so many people without power and without heat now, the American Red Cross opened several shelters throughout our area.
In Florence County, there's a shelter open at South Florence High School. In Lower Florence County, a shelter at Lake City High School. And in Darlington County, Darlington Middle School is serving as a shelter. In Dillon County, Dillon High School is a shelter. In Marion County, Marion High School is being used as a shelter in that city. Our crews in the field are telling us that more reports are coming in of outages in the last hour. Before that, volunteers going into shelters here at this one say it's been pretty empty, but they do have food and water available. And of course, anyone is welcome to go in. At the Darlington Middle School shelter earlier this morning, it was even more quiet there. Volunteers say no one's come through their doors yet since they opened early yesterday morning. They too have food and water, as well as cots and blankets available to anyone who needs to come in. We just got off the phone with Red Cross officials, and they say at most of their shelters in our area, it's been pretty quiet, but they are there if you need them. They say a big reason for that is it's tough getting the word out to the public, many of whom don't have power, but they say they are doing their best to work with emergency managers to keep letting people know that shelters are open. We also spoke with someone who just got to a shelter in Florence about how much staying there meant to her.
Because I don't like sitting at home with nothing to eat and no water and, no power. Everybody was freezing. We woke up this morning freezing. The lights went out last night about 8 o'clock, so it's pretty cold in the house. So I'm really glad to be here, and I'm glad that they're here for us.
We did ask Red Cross officials why many of the shelters opened only after the power went out. They say they were set up but could only officially open once emergency managers gave them the okay. Officials tell us they will remain open until this evening at the earliest, and if this storm goes on, possibly even later than that.
All public schools in our area are closed this Thursday, and we're already getting reports for closures and delays tomorrow.
School is canceled tomorrow for Dillon School Districts 3 and 4. All Darlington County schools are also canceled, as well as Florence Districts 3 and 5 and Trinity Barnes Collegiate. We have not heard from Marlborough, Marion, Robinson, Scotland, or Horry County schools about their plans for tomorrow. We'll of course get you that information as soon as we have it. The same issues that are causing these widespread power outages are making roads nearly impassable today in some areas.
That's right. Last night, as our News Channel 15 crews were out driving through Florence, we caught this as our camera was rolling. You can see the streets with full power, but then all of a sudden we see a flash and the entire sky light up blue. Then everything went dark. Street lights and everything else around us. Luckily, moments later, some of that power was restored, but as we've been telling you right now, a lot of Florence and much of the PD is without power. This coupled with these icy roads, making it even more dangerous to drive. We spoke with South Carolina Department of Transportation officials. They tell us they've got crews working 12-hour shifts until tonight, or as long as it takes as they continue dealing with downed trees on top of all of the salting, sanding, and plowing. Also, we talked to some local drivers in our area who ventured out in this mess, and they have this advice for anyone thinking about driving today.
If you can possibly stay in the house, stay. If you absolutely have to get on the road, then get on the road, but just please be careful and watch out where you're driving.
It's just easing along, just watching where you're going. We got it in four-wheel drive, so we don't have no problem.
DOT officials say this has been much more of a difficult storm to clean up than the last one we just saw a couple of weeks ago. But they say that last storm did a great job of preparing crews for this one.
Well, our news crews have been out all morning and afternoon, from the PD to the Grand Strand. They've really been all over the place, monitoring and covering the damage, and they say that it is widespread.
WPDE News Channel 15's Amanda Kinzit continues our winter storm coverage now. She's live in downtown Conway. Amanda?
That's right, and take a look at this. I mean, this is just an example of all the tree branches that have fallen down in the entire area. I mean, there are tons here, and this has been happening all over the place. It's continuing through the day, and if you have been around the tree branches when it's falling, then you know what it's like. It sounds like an explosion, and then boom, a huge trunk of tree falls to the ground. This morning we were in Marion, and it was happening there, plus it was pitch black. Everybody had lost power. So there were tree branches. Some of them were completely covering the roads this morning in Marion, and down branches going through the main street. It was like going through a maze. You had to weave in and out of some of the streets around branches and whatnot. So people really had to take caution. Aner, they had its share of fallen branches too. The crews worked overnight to clear the roadways, so the roadways were pretty much clear. But however, they had to wait for the power company to cut down one of the fallen trees, and that was on Bay Street in Aner. It fell entirely across the road and was laying on power lines, just missing the house behind the power lines. The power outage is widespread. It was in Aner as well, and the businesses and the homes and everything was dark. There are still some people here in Conway without power, and people are anxiously awaiting, hoping that power comes on soon. But just do beware of the tree branches. They could be anywhere, especially if you're driving on the side streets and whatnot. You want to be careful and look out for those, guys.
Amanda Kinseth reporting live for us in Conway there. What a mess.
We've seen downed tree branches like that really all over the place, and it's not just the small roads. I mean, you said you saw some on 544 this morning,
yeah,
right?
Those were just on the sides of the roads, but there's so many downed lines and trees that are blocking roads as well. People are, having to detour and choose different routes to get where they need to go.
Lots of wild pictures coming in from people with trees and limbs near their houses as well. Definitely something to watch out for as the ice still comes, falling down off those trees.
Yeah, and for updates all day long on power outages throughout your area, where your nearest shelter is, and up-to-the-minute road conditions, we've got you covered.
Just head on over to your website, carolinalive.com. It's where you're watching us right now. There you'll also find updated school and business closing information.
And remember, you can find us on Facebook by searching News Channel 15 and on Twitter at Carolina Live.
People all across South Carolina are dealing with what looks like a disaster zone this afternoon, but help is on the way.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency has approved Governor Nikki Haley's request for an emergency declaration for the state of South Carolina as this winter storm continues to take a toll on our state. This is video from Spartanburg.
Haley's assuring residents across the state that officials are working around the clock to clean up the mess left behind.
The access to FEMA assets will help cover 75% of the cost of this storm. Then the state will be responsible for the rest.
Well, the damage is stretching from Georgia all the way up and down the East Coast with this big storm system.
ABC's Devin Dwyer's in Atlanta with a look at the toll the storm is taking on travel.
With the powerful winter storm, another round of travel nightmares.
I've spent 2 nights here. I've had 3 flights canceled.
I'm ready to get on any flight and fall asleep and take a ride home.
Ahead of the busy President's Day weekend, airports on the East Coast getting slammed by snow and ice. Today, more than 5,000 flights have been canceled nationwide. In Atlanta, the big backup at the world's busiest airport being felt everywhere.
As far west as California and probably international destinations as well.
Stranded travelers have sold out hotel rooms across the South, many fearing a weekend alone.
All I can say is to my husband, Happy Valentine's Day, because I just might not be there.
Dangerous roads caked in ice are making driving treacherous. In Georgia, schools are closed and streets deserted for a 3rd straight day. Outside Raleigh, abandoned cars dot the highway.
If you want to go back and get your car, we really recommend that you wait until it's totally safe.
The heavy ice left a destructive path. Roofs collapsed and power lines down.
I've never seen it like this.
Through the roof, and into the attic space.
More than 500,000 homes and businesses are in the dark across 11 states. Utility crews scrambling to clean up and catch up as the mammoth storm moves north. And the airlines, battered by weeks of delays, are struggling to catch up too. Passengers are slowly returning to airports in the south, but those trying to get north may have to wait a little bit longer. Devin Dwyer, ABC News, Atlanta.
Wow, not just us.
No, and it looks like it certainly could be worse. I mean, we all remember what Atlanta was like just a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely. And now we want to take a live look for you.
Yeah, we're actually heading north. This is Washington, D.C., of course, the White House, where we're looking, and definitely looks a bit more picturesque than what we're dealing with here. That's kind of, the White House in a nice blanket of white snow, something you might see on a postcard, rather than the ice and the downed tree limbs that we're dealing with.
True, it does look awfully pretty. And also, we've just found out that federal employees have been asked to stay home in Washington, D.C. Probably pretty good. You don't want to take any chances on those roads either.
Definitely. So while it might look pretty, still some danger up there as well, enough to keep those employees home. Right. Well, get off the road and stay off. That was the message all the way from Georgia up here to the Carolinas and even farther north into D.C. as the snow and ice swept through.
Officials were trying to avoid a situation like what happened in Atlanta just a few weeks ago, where, of course, thousands of drivers were stranded on highways.
But as you can see, there were still major problems. This time in Raleigh, Lindsay Webb took this amazing post-apocalyptic style picture. Looks like a scene out of a movie with an exploding car. You have to wonder how that car fire even started. It looks like something, again, out of a Hollywood horror movie, just showing that the roads conditions were still bad and definitely can still be bad out there today.
And we continue to track that snow heading up in through the Raleigh area and points to the north. As you can see, though, conditions are starting to dry out from the Grand Strand to the PD. So that is at least some good news for us. Let's go ahead and zoom in, though, right around the I-95 corridor in through North Carolina. As you can see, snow falling in Laurinburg, Lumberton, even up around St. Paul's, up to Hope Mills and Fayetteville. This will continue to work its way north and in through portions of Charlotte, up to Raleigh and up the East Coast. We are starting to see conditions dry out a little bit the further south that you go. Hartsville, maybe a few flurries, though, still some moisture off to the west, getting ready to wrap around that low that's overhead and working its way northward. Florence currently dry, but again, some flurries, some snow showers still possible to the west, getting ready to rotate on through. As we go to the Grand Strand, conditions are dry right now. You may get a little bit of a drizzle here or there, but it looks like most of the accumulating moisture, the rain in general, has come to an end. So some good news there, but a wider view, you can see that spin in the atmosphere, the moisture to our north and west around Charlotte, wrapping southward toward Columbia, and eventually that will wrap eastward into the PD. So we are going to continue to track the chance for a few showers out there and some snow possible along and around the I-95 corridor into the mid and late afternoon. As that system pulls away, though, conditions will dry out. We're still going to hold on to the excess of cloud cover. So for the PD areas, the rest of the winter storm impacts will generally be some freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Little to no accumulation, but certainly anything that does fall is building up on top of ice that's already there, along with the snow that some of us saw out there 2 days ago. So conditions certainly not improving as far as roadways goes, and the possibility of even more power outages purely from the fact that we still have that ice weighing down on most of those trees and power lines. As we head to the Grand Strand, again, a few showers, but no ice accumulations whatsoever as we continue to see our temperatures rise above freezing. We do have our first warning storm chaser, Gerard Jabali. He is out live in Florence County. Gerard, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. I sure am, Darren. Good afternoon.
All right. So we can see from your picture that there is a tree across the road right in front of you. I noticed earlier that there was a truck that actually tried to pass and had to turn around. Whereabouts are you right now?
Well, right now I'm located just on the outskirts of the city of Florence on Beaver Dam Road, and as you see, I came upon this very large tree that's draped completely across the road here, making it completely impassable. Luckily, there is a way around this tree, but this is a scene that's now very familiar across the entire area. Earlier, we did have that brief heavy snow about an hour ago, but let's start with the good news. The good news is that my mobile weather station is reporting temperature rise of only about 1.5 degrees. So we're up to around 33 degrees now. So now the trees are starting to finally lose some weight because some of the ice is finally melting off. But still, large tree branches and limbs are still falling to the ground with even the melting ice. And they can still land on power lines, which I've been seeing, well, plenty of them land on the ground. And, you know, you don't want to have any of those hit you on the head. But road conditions aren't as poor as they were late last night, but still fairly treacherous out there. And also, be very careful if you're out walking around in this. I've already heard numerous ER visits due to people just slipping and falling. The ice has become very crusty on top, and it is not easy to stand up in. So if you're going to venture out, take very good care of yourself and be very careful walking around.
Good point, Gerard. And one of the other things I want to make note of, too, on that is that some folks walking around, you got to watch out for the trees as well, because there may be some limbs that are actually up in the branches that have actually snapped but have not fallen to the ground yet. And you don't want to be caught anywhere near one of those. So obviously avoid walking around the tree line right now as well. But I want to say thank you for that amazing picture right now. As you can see, that live picture in Florence County, Beaver Dam Road. There is a tree across the road. And obviously over the past 2 days, this has been a common view for many of us. And now most of us are starting to at least have some help from the DOT, getting some of those trees cleared away from those impassable roadways. So some good news is, as Gerard had just mentioned too, is that temperatures are finally starting to come back above freezing. You see Florence is reporting at 34 right now, along with Bennettsville and even Rockingham and Hartsville, areas that have already seen that third round of the freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Again, there's still a little bit more moisture that's going to wrap into the PD and the border belt areas, but little to no accumulation really expected from that. Along the Grand Strand, great news there is we're at 35 in Myrtle Beach and 36 in Murrells Inlet, so we will continue to see those temperatures on the rise as we go through the next few hours. Now, high-res futurecast temperatures maybe a little overdone. Some of us may see the low 40s briefly, but most of us won't inland because of that ice pack as well as that cloud cover and the leftover moisture still wrapping around. Nonetheless, It is still going to be a cold, windy day out there for us. Tonight, temps will drop below freezing almost area-wide. A few spots along the immediate coast may not drop down to the freezing mark. So anything that does melt out there, unfortunately, does have the potential, especially inland, of re-freezing. The good news is we continue a trend of warmer conditions out there for tomorrow, well above freezing, even by the midday. Afternoon temperatures skyrocketing into the mid-50s for most of us. But that is also ahead of our next cold front. That next cold front will be sliding into the southeast as we go overnight Friday into early Saturday morning. So as this low exits and turns into that next winter storm for folks up into the northeast, a secondary cold front comes through. When this front passes, though, we will be well above freezing, so we won't be dealing with anything in the frozen nature. That front will continue to push to the east, and we will continue to deal with just the chance for a few showers late Friday night into early Saturday. The good news is our temperature trend is on the up and up, well above freezing as we head into the next 7 days, especially as we go into the weekend of next week. Look at that, 55 on Sunday, 59 on Monday, even 60s out there Tuesday and Wednesday. Inland areas, you're going to be looking for mid-60s, potentially upper 60s as we head into the middle of next week. So the light at the end of the tunnel, it is approaching. Great weather for the weekend. Valentine's Day forecast tomorrow evening shouldn't be hampered by that front coming on through the area. And at least we're getting above freezing through most of the day tomorrow.
Thank goodness,
freezing.
right?
Music to my ears.
Definitely. I think everyone could use a break. A lot of people without power right now, not very happy. So these warmer temperatures is great news.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Darren.
We do want to show a couple of storm damage pictures. You won't even believe these images. Amanda Kinseth shot a couple of these while she was out. Here's one of a tree on top of power lines. This is Bay Street in Aner. Pretty amazing there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got this tree that just looks like it completely split. This one down in Merle's Inlet from Casey Goats.
I think it's goats. Yeah, unbelievable. And then Amanda also sent this one. Oh, this is also Bay Street in Aner. And one more. We've got Neighbors Helping Neighbors. This is in Latta by Raven Smith. So we appreciate that. And for Horry County, or actually, let's move on now to all public schools in our area closed today. We're already hearing about closures and delays for tomorrow.
Absolutely. Already coming into our newsroom. Schools canceled tomorrow for Dillon. School districts 3 and 4. All Darlington County schools, as well as Florence districts 3 and 5, and Trinity Burns Collegiate also closed as well. We've not heard from Marlborough, Marion, Robson, Scotland, or Horry County schools about their plans for tomorrow. We will, of course, get you that information as soon as it becomes available.
Because there are so many people without power and heat, the Red Cross opened several shelters in our area.
In Florence County, there's a shelter open at South Florence High School, and in Lower Florence County, a shelter is at Lake City High School.
In Darlington County, Darlington Middle School is a shelter. In Dillon County, Dillon High School is a shelter. And over in Marion County, Marion High School is being used as a shelter. For updates all day long on power outages in your area, where your nearest shelter is, and up-to-the-minute road conditions, we've got you covered.
Just head on over to your website, carolinalive.com. That's where you'll also find updated school and business closing information all throughout the day.
And remember, find us on Facebook by searching News Channel 15 and on Twitter at Carolina Live. But before we go, we need to check in with Darren Stack one more time.
The good news is conditions are finally starting to wind down as far as any accumulating moisture or precipitation. It does look like we have the possibility, though, still a little bit of a snow flurry or two and some flakes across parts of the PD and the border belt as this upper level low that's sitting overhead gradually pulls away for the I-95 corridor north and to the west. Little to no accumulation, though, really expected. We will make it above freezing and already are starting to make it above freezing across most of the PD and the border belt areas. We're actually going to get up to around 40 along the coastline. Mid-30s for the inland areas. Then overnight with skies clearing, unfortunately, temperatures are forecast to drop below freezing back for the inland areas. So that means anything that does wind up melting a little bit, most likely freezing back over, creating some icy conditions on roads, bridges, overpasses. We'll have to keep an eye on those tree limbs as well, and power outages certainly. But as we go through the next few days, temperatures are rising. We are mainly dry, aside from that little front that comes through here Friday night to early Saturday. No major temperature impacts from that front because we're talking 50s for the weekend and even 60s as we head into next week.
Can you believe it?
60s.
I mean, thank you. I mean, it's early spring, really, after experiencing this winter-like weather.
We deserve it. There's nothing more than I could say, but we deserve some nice weather And no winter weather for a while. I'm done. I'm ready for spring. Bring it on.
Absolutely. I think everyone can agree now, even if you like the cold.
Definitely. It's about time we want to start seeing your spring pictures. You can send those in. But in the meantime, we'll take what you've got. You can send them to us and follow all our updates on CarolinaLive.com. We're on Facebook, News Channel 15, and on Twitter @CarolinaLive. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.